Welcome to Humans of Animal Care, a collection of audio stories that highlight people who've dedicated themselves to helping animals. Today we'll be hearing from Brett Checketts, a registered veterinary technician working in emergency medicine in Santa Barbara and doing relief work in Los Angeles. We talk about the range of career options that an RVT license can provide, the many different animals Brett has worked with, and what it takes to do well in the animal field. We also learn about Brett's time volunteering with a ferret rescue.
My name is Brett Checketts, and I'm a registered veterinary technician. I grew up with many different pets. My parents kind of let me have whatever animals I wanted, and we had golden retrievers growing up, and I got a rat when I was probably about 7 years old, and just really enjoyed my time with the animals. I used to go to sea life camp as a kid down in Dana Point, and went to zoo camps in Santa Ana as a kid, and got to spend a lot of time working with small primates there. And we did animal training too, and I just really enjoyed it. My mom had a horse growing up, so I did horse riding and got into saltwater fish and had birds and ferrets and all kinds of different animals. So when I was in elementary school, I was in the gifted and talented education program, and we had to go do interviews with different job paths that we were interested in. I had wanted to be a train engineer as a child, so I went and did that. Got to ride in like a diesel train engine one day to check that out. I ended up interviewing our family veterinarian, and he offered if I wanted to volunteer, I could. So I started doing that and really enjoyed it. So I'd had the dream to go to vet school, which didn't happen for me. But I did various jobs throughout life and had a major accident and kind of had a reevaluation of life and decided that I couldn't go to vet school, that I still wanted to work in the field.
But I initially went to UC Davis as a pre-vet student studying animal science, and then I did a minor for biology. It was pretty cool because the veterinary school is there on campus, so they have a lot of facilities for equine rehabilitation. So they have like treadmills and underwater treadmills and all kinds of neat things there. They have an expansive library there for veterinary stuff too, which is pretty awesome. We did a lot of husbandry classes with cattle and sheep and got to learn about different aspects of animal husbandry and farming. We went through a milk production facility and cheese production, and I took some avian classes too.
I was on a disability after the accident that I had. I had a tire explode in my face. So I spent quite a bit of time in the hospital for a year and having several surgeries. I had enjoyed what I was doing at the time. I was building dune buggies to race down Baja 500, and some of them went over to Dubai. It was a job that I really enjoyed. I like being hands-on, but when I had the accident, I kind of reevaluated my life and was like, my long-term dream was to work in veterinary medicine, and knew that there wasn't a way for me to make that happen financially at the time. And if I couldn't do it at the capacity as a doctor, the next best thing for me was to become an RVT. So I went through a accredited associate program in San Diego, California called PIMA, and did a 1-year veterinary assistant program. Did an exotics and small animal externship after that. And then I went to their veterinary technician program. Ended up graduating with honors, got a special award in the program. I finished it in 2012. and sat for my RVT boards right after I graduated and passed it the first time. And got hired at my technician externship and started working in emergency medicine. I didn't really know specifically at the time that I wanted to be in emergency medicine, but I knew the hospital. They had all the different specialties there, internal medicine, surgery. They had a radiologist, oncology. After doing my externship there, just the level of medicine that they practiced, and that it was progressive, and they had a lot of protocols in place. Really felt like we were doing the best we could for the patients we took care of. I did enjoy working in general practice, and it's definitely got a family feel when you work in that type of a hospital, but I didn't really feel very compelled at the time, just because a lot of the things that you do are basic exams and vaccinations and spays and neuters, and I didn't really feel it was challenging enough for me. So I do enjoy always learning. Something about specialty medicine that's great is that most hospitals, the different departments all work together on cases. So you get to experience a lot of different things, and it always varies in what you're doing. So every day is different, and it makes it more enjoyable for me. At this point in my career, I've worked in emergency medicine mostly, and I worked in ophthalmology for several years and didn't really think eyes were that neat at the time, but once I got into it, I really have a passion for ophthalmology now. And I did dentistry for a while too, and with both of those specialties, I got to do a lot of exotics work. So I did a little bit of zoo medicine when I worked in ophthalmology in San Diego. I got to go to the San Diego Wild Animal Park, the San Diego Zoo, and then we also did a lot of work with a facility called Lions, Tigers, and Bears.
We went to look at a black panther that ended up needing its lens removed from its eye. And while we were there at the hospital, I was able to help the doctor examine like 15 different species of animals. So we saw koala bears and snakes and different lizards and birds. Looked at an elephant. I also got to work with sea life. I worked in dentistry at the Aquarium of the Pacific in Long Beach. So we got to work on otters and sea lions and penguins there, which was really neat to be a part of that. Working in that capacity is just wonderful. I really enjoy it a lot. I really enjoy the variety of animals that I've gotten to work on over the years.
So if I was able to go into working at a zoo hospital, either in Los Angeles or San Diego, I would really enjoy that a lot. But at this time, I'm pursuing becoming a veterinary technician specialist, or VTS. And that's almost equivalent to being kind of like a nurse practitioner in a way, to compare it to human medicine. You take a set of boards after spending a year working on some specific skill sets, and then writing up cases that you work on that all have to demonstrate that you are able to do those advanced critical care skills. And it's part of the Veterinary College of Critical Care. So with that, you end up doing a lot more procedures. So that's kind of the next thing that I'm pursuing.
In the last couple of years, I've thought about, what other directions can I go with my RVT license. I'd also looked into opening up an ambulance service because there's not a lot of specialty hospitals in a few parts of California, the Central Valley and Central Coast. So a lot of times we find that animals that need oxygen support don't have a way to be transported to another hospital for ventilator cases because the hospitals in this area aren't equipped with ventilators. Also, the ability to do surgery on animals, a lot of times there's not staffing or the availability of doctors. And we just don't have a lot of specialists in these two areas in California. So I wanted to be able to help people transport from emergency hospitals in those parts of California to specialty hospitals in Los Angeles area, as well as supplementing it with services for general practice visits for elderly people and those without transportation, and then also transporting animals from general practice that need to go be hospitalized in emergency practice or also go to a specialty practice. I think there's a great need for it, and I know that there's a few other businesses like that operating around the country. So I think that that's a direction I could go forward with. And then I was also approached by a doctor with the idea of opening up an RVT-based mobile practice where I would work with a doctor or a team of doctors for them to do consultations and write up prescriptions. And then I would run the practice by getting a history from the client and doing a hands-on physical exam, talking to the doctor and doing all of the necessary diagnostics that they wanted. And then the doctor would review the results of those. And then if they need to be sent somewhere for, further services, I would refer them. But if it was a lot of things that I was capable of doing, like bandaging and other minor procedures within my means as an RVT, then I would be able to do those things as well. So basic wound care, like clipping and cleaning and flushing, and then closing a wound with staple or sutures. If I was running the ambulance service, I would be able to intubate the animal and keep them on oxygen, place an IV catheter and fluids, and then if I was able to equip the van with some necessary emergency drugs, I would be able to support them a little bit further while transporting them to a specialty facility. I don't know that I would be able to do some things such as anesthesia without direct supervision of the doctor, but if that were the case, then I would be able to offer dental procedures. And then with a mobile practice, I could also be doing blood work and x-rays and other diagnostics like that. I could place splints and do wet to dry bandages. I could also do vaccine clinics as well. So I think that would be something enjoyable because I would be out and about and running the business myself. Another avenue I had kind of considered was being an animal control officer. You're going out and checking to make sure animals aren't neglected and have proper living situation. Going out for calls for loose animals and like dog and chicken fighting and things like that. But a lot of it is catching stray dogs and cats, bringing them in and getting some of their vital information and vaccinating them, deworming them, and then the shelter will take over at that point. You also work a lot with snakes and hawks and other animals and work with the local wildlife groups to get them the proper care that they need. So that's another way that I feel like I could go with my RVT license, and it'd be an enjoyable experience because you're driving all over the county and getting to basically have a varied day every day. You get to deal with a lot of different people and lots of different types of animals that you don't necessarily in small animal practice, and lots of sunshine. So I think I would enjoy it. There's other things that we haven't discussed too that you can do with your license, which is working in research.
So it sounds like there's a lot that RVTs can do, from the areas that you work in to the procedures that you perform. This is Brett's advice for someone hoping to go into the animal field.
I would say for somebody getting into the profession that you really have to have a good sense of humor, a tough skin, and be adaptable, motivated, and always willing to learn. You get to experience a lot of things, but sometimes clients are hard to deal with. Sometimes doctors are hard to deal with. And patients aren't always agreeable. So I think being able to be adaptable and approaching things a lot of times with kid gloves on will keep you in a good mind space. But if somebody's wanting to get into the field, I definitely would recommend that they go see if they can volunteer at a hospital just to kind of feel out how it is. If you're a go-getter and comfortable talking with people and being adaptable, you would do well. I think that somebody that likes to try to learn new skills all the time will do well. I would say being comfortable with being around animals and understanding you do often have to times jump into other roles, whether that be reception or comforting a client after losing a pet, are things that you'll need to expect to have to work through. I think that from a client or pet owner's view, for them to understand the level of skills and care that we provide as a technician are a lot greater than they realize. And I think that if there was more pet insurance people had, that would not only elevate the pay of veterinary staff, but also allow for better quality of care, more in-depth care than most people are able to financially provide for their pet. And if there was more insight to that as to what all we do, I know that as far as comparing human medicine, there's kind of a looking down from doctors towards veterinarians and nurses towards vet technicians, that they feel that it's less than what they do. But the reality of it is that we do quite a bit more. Most nurses, for example, will become specialized in what they do. But with a veterinary technician, we do all of the things that a nurse would do and then some. So we're not only doing nursing care, we're a triage nurse. We are a medical assistant for the doctor. We do all of the estimates and talking to the clients as well. We set up and help with procedures. We help in surgery. We pack instruments. We take x-rays and CTs and MRIs. We do small outpatient procedures. We work as a pharmacist filling medications, write up records. We work as a charge nurse. So there's a lot more that you do on a day-to-day basis. The amount of information that you have to pack into your brain compared and comparatively, the pay is usually about 1/5 of what it is for a registered nurse. I think something that I hear a lot from clients is, wow, that I could never do this myself. I think part of the reason for that is that we do deal with a lot of cases that are hard, whether that be neglect or, a pet that the client does everything that is within their capacity to care for their pet, and then they're not able to continue financially or whatever decision they make. We ultimately do have to deal with end of life. So that's pretty hard. It's something that I don't want to say you necessarily go numb to it, but you become accustomed to it. It still does affect me when we have a case where I've gotten to know the patient really well, or developed a relationship with the client, and we're seeing them repeatedly, or if they're hospitalized for quite a long time, as well as for friends and coworkers when they lose their pets. It's something that I feel when you first start in the field is hard for people to disconnect, and that's something over time that I don't necessarily want to say hardened maybe is the right way to say it, but you don't become as affected by it over time. Not to say that there's not an importance in experiencing those emotions.
There are many difficult parts about working with animals, but there are also positive and fulfilling aspects that draw people to this field.
I just enjoy being able to see a pet that we take care of improve while they're in hospital, knowing that we can care for those animals and get them in a better place. Seeing them leave in better condition than they came in is a great feeling. I think that with a pet, barring them being scared, that they just seem generally happy and are enjoyable to work with. So I just enjoy not only that, but also just the variance of pets that we see. So we're working with all different breeds of dogs and cats.
I asked Brett if there were any cases that have stood out to him over the years.
A husky that I remember that was hit by one of the trolleys in San Diego and brought in by a Good Sam. It had a collapsed lung and half of its chest had the skin avulsed, and a crushed leg. And unfortunately that did get euthanized. I remember working on a dog in Santa Barbara that had been bitten by a spider and had a lot of the tissue on its leg necrose. And I remember at the time using tilapia fish skins for burn cases was a thing. And we'd been doing wet to dry bandages on this dog for probably close to 2.5 months. And when it was getting smaller in size, we applied the tilapia skins, and the dog actually healed within a couple of weeks at that point. One of the funnest cases I did was at the San Diego Zoo. We had a baby giraffe that its eye color had actually changed. We did work with a team of about 30 people, and we all had to powwow and get the baby giraffe separated from its mom, which she was very upset about. And just working with everybody to get the animal sedated was quite an undertaking. Being able to help the doctor do the exam on that and diagnostics was a really fun experience.
Fun fact, Brett used to help out in a ferret rescue.
I had gotten a ferret as a pet many, many years ago. I had a friend that had moved from the East Coast and had one, and so I'd never been exposed to one before. And I think they're a really interesting animal, and they're fun in that they play like a kitten their entire lives, but they're also very dependent and like to cuddle, and they're kind of like having a growing dog and a kitten in one pet. I became part of a group in San Diego that rescues ferrets, and we would work to get them from different places. Sometimes we'd have like a landlord, say a tenant had moved out and left one behind, or someone was moving to where they weren't able to have them anymore. So we worked with a group of people to get them picked up and rehabilitated and get medical care for them and rehome them. That's something that if I ever move out of California, I would like to try to do that some more. They're a really wonderful animal, and I didn't know this at the time, that they're not considered legal in California, even though they're a domesticated animal. So that's part of the reason that I wanted to advocate for them more, because there used to be a group in California that when they came into different shelters or animal control had picked them up, they would relocate them out of state so that they could be rehomed. But there's not any funding for those types of services anymore. So unfortunately, these wonderful animals end up getting euthanized at the shelters just because of the law here in California. So they're able to be treated at veterinary facilities, and there's quite a large population of them in the state. I wanted to help be a part of trying to find them homes because they're very happy little creatures.
This has been Humans of Animal Care. Thanks for listening.